What's going on, you guys? Sports Runs on Diesel's back at you here with another episode. Week 16 in the books. We got 1 week left here to go in the regular season. Let's get to it here. We know it was all the Alvin Kamara show on Christmas Day. By the way, Merry Christmas to all of you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. And I hope everyone has had a healthy and safe Christmas. And hopefully everyone will have a healthy and safe New Year's Eve and New Year's Day as we go into 2021. Back to the action here. Alvin Kamara, 6 touchdowns, ties the NFL single season record here for most rushing touchdowns in a game. And the Saints march right on past, no pun intended, of the Minnesota Vikings. They marched right past them, 52-33. It really wasn't even a contest. Alvin Kamara they just kept going to him and going to him and going to him, and he just kept producing. And when you have a player that's as dynamic as Alvin Kamara, who can rush the football and who can catch in the backfield as well and be a playmaker, forget it. It's over. But with that being said, the Saints continue to march on here as they are the number 2 seed in the playoff picture. I will get to the playoff picture in a few minutes here. Bucks destroy the Lions. I'm not going to talk way too much about this ball game. The Bucks absolutely destroy the Detroit Lions here, 47-7 here. Brady and Gabbert combined for 6 passing touchdowns, and they clinch their first playoff berth since 2007. 49ers play spoiler alert on the Arizona Cardinals here, 20-12, and no one else to talk about other than Jeff Wilson Jr. Over 200 yards combined, whether it was on the air, in the ground. He rushed for well over 100 yards in the ball game, but over 200 scrimmage yards in the ball game for Jeff Wilson Jr. And that is how you play spoiler alert. If you're a team not going to make the playoffs and you're playing a team that is going to play in the playoffs in the last 3 weeks, all you can do is spoil it. And they do that with the Arizona Cardinals, as now the Arizona Cardinals are on the outside looking in. Fitzmagic leads the, I don't want to say improbable comeback, but close to improbable comeback. They only give him 25, 28 seconds left in this ball game here. And Raiders are up by 2 points. Fitzmagic does his thing, 49. I still don't know how this guy threw this football. I still don't know how Fitzmagic threw this football with his helmet getting pulled on, face mask, roughing the passer, you name it. 15 yards on top of the 49-yard pass play. Puts him in field goal range. The rest is history. Fitzmagic does it again as they beat the Raiders 26-25. And guess what? Tua Tagovailoa is still the starter here in Miami. And some people are still scratching their heads on this one because, now, I'm not saying Tua didn't play bad. Tua had a pretty good ball game, 17-22. He only threw for 94 yards. He's only throwing short, intermediate throws. And unfortunately, when you're playing against teams that are trying to play for the playoffs, that are competing to try and get in a playoff spot, 94 yards on 17 completions is not going to do it. He needs to be finding a way to get the ball downfield accurately and not being afraid to use his legs as well to be a playmaker. Justin Herbert leads the Chargers over the Broncos here, 19-16, as he owns the single-season record for rookie passing touchdowns at 28 now, as he is beaten Baker Mayfield's record. And obviously, he's obviously the favorable candidate for Rookie of the Year, and I continue to keep saying that Herbert's going to be Rookie of the Year, and he will be Rookie of the Year the way he has thrown the football. Seven games of 300 yards or more. There's nothing else that needs to be said about Justin Herbert, as the Chargers kind of ending the season on a good note here. You know, they've won I think it was 3 out of their last 4 ball games here. They're looking pretty good. But with that being said, their head coach, Lynn, is probably going to be fired by the end of the season because he has done absolutely nothing with this Chargers team since he's been on it. They haven't even made a playoff berth since he was the head coach. Jets beat the Browns. Another spoiler alert here. Even though the Cleveland Browns are still somewhat in the playoff picture, even though they lost their last 2 games, the Cleveland Browns have got to get it together here. Here they go. They go on this incredible run. Then they lose to a heartbreaking loss to the Baltimore Ravens. And now you lose to a team that was once 0-13, now is, well, 2-13. No one still cares. You still lose to the Jets team. And if you're the Jets, you got to be out of your mind for trying to win ball games here at the end of the regular season. You got the favorable number 1 overall pick with this Trevor Lawrence in the NFL draft this upcoming offseason, and you're going to win 2 games. So now guess who owns the number 1 overall draft pick right now? The Jacksonville Jaguars. Absolute stupidity if you're the New York Jets and the ownership and the management and the coaching staff to try and win 2 ball games here at the end of the regular season. But they play, spoiler alert, and they beat Cleveland 23-16. Baltimore makes absolute easy work of the New York Giants here, 27-13. And Baltimore has won, 3-4 straight games after losing 4 out of 5. This Baltimore team is getting more and more dangerous. They're sneaking into the playoff picture here. And Baltimore's a team you don't want to be up against in the playoffs. Up next, the Bengals with the win over the Texans. I'm not even going to talk very much about this game at all, other than the fact that Houston ownership and front office people need to fix what Bill O'Brien completely made a disaster of. And, you get rid of DeAndre Hopkins. And Deshaun Watson has been going off. Unfortunately, we all know about Will Fuller getting suspended towards the end of the regular season here, suspended like 6-8 weeks, something like that. But this front office needs to fix what Bill O'Brien broke. And the one person you can't break right now is Deshaun Watson, who's having an MVP caliber year. To forget, he's thrown for almost 4,500 yards in the season, great touchdown to interception ratio, great completion percentage. He's top 10 in just about every passing category, rating, you name it. And they have one of the worst records in the NFL right now. So with that being said, front office, do your job and fix this team. The Bears and the Jaguars. The Bears make light work of the Jaguars, 41-17 here. And we got to talk about David Montgomery here, because the last 5 weeks, this guy has gone off. He's rushed for over 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. You know what he had in the first 9 weeks of the regular season? Or the first 9 weeks he played in the regular season? 472 rushing yards and a touchdown. He's really responsible for 2 touchdowns in the first 9 weeks. He also had a pass catching touchdown. He also has a pass catching touchdown in the last 5 weeks. But all in all, David Montgomery, Matt Nagy has done something that he should have been doing a long time ago, is giving the offensive play calling to someone who he can trust. And now look at this offense. And guess what? The Bears are back in the playoff picture now. Mitchell Trubisky has been firing on all cylinders. They keep scoring over 30 points ever since Mitchell Trubisky's been back. And guess what? Mitchell Trubisky, out of Aaron Rodgers and select company, he has one of the best records in the NFL in the last 3 years. He has a better record than Aaron Rodgers in the regular season in the last 3 years when he's a starter. That's crazy to think about. But Matt Nagy has done something finally and handed over the offensive play calling reins to somebody else. And look what has happened. The offense has been flourishing since then. And David Montgomery is a product of that. Chiefs clinch a first-round bye here with the win over the Falcons, 17-14. This game was obviously closer than we all expected. You give credit to the Atlanta Falcons keeping this game as close as they possibly can. But the problem is you score a touchdown late in the fourth quarter and you leave Mahomes with too much time on the clock. You leave him with 4+ minutes on the clock. And once I saw that, I was like, oh, Chiefs are going to win. They got the first-round bye. It's all over. Let's move on. Steelers sneak by the Indianapolis Colts here, 28-24. And this was a game I thought the Steelers were going to lose because the Colts have been winning a bunch of games as of late here. But now with this loss, they are on the outside of the playoffs looking in. And we will get to that in just a second. But the Steelers sneak by the Colts here, 28-24. And they decide to rest. Mike Tomlin decides to rest Ben Roethlisberger for Week 17's matchup against the Cleveland Browns. Well, they have clinched a playoff spot with the win over the Colts, so that's why they decided to rest him in Week 17 here against the Cleveland Browns. Next, Panthers beat the Washington football team 20-13 here, and this is a big loss for the Washington football team here. Why? Because guess what? This leaves the Cowboys and the Giants still a chance to beat them or to win the NFC East and make the playoffs. So the Washington football team right now is 6-9. The Cowboys, which I will get to in just a sec, are now 6-9, and the Giants are now 5-10. With that being said, it's just Washington need to win that football game to really clinch the NFC East. And technically, they would clinch the NFC East if they won last week, and they would really clinch it if they win this week. But long story short here, let's get back down to it. Seahawks clinched the NFC West here with a 20-9 victory over the Los Angeles Rams. And Russell Wilson, this team has not looked great the last 4 or 5 weeks, but Russell Wilson continues to find a way to win ball games. And they beaten some of the best teams in the NFC doing it. And of course, they beat the Rams. The Rams are still in the playoffs. No need to worry about them just yet. But Seahawks clinched the NFC West with the 20-9 win. Cowboys beat the Eagles 37-17. And here we go. Now they're tied with the Washington football team for the top team in the division. And, Jalen Hurts did not look good in this football game at all. But the Cowboys had, I think it was like over 500 yards of offense. A big time game. And it was over 990 yards, net yards combined between the two teams. The most net yards combined in these two teams when they've played each other. So a lot of history goes back with these two teams in this NFC East division, but the Cowboys stay in the playoff hunt with the win over the Eagles. Packers kill the Tennessee Titans. I thought this game was going to be a lot closer, but when you go to Green Bay in Lambeau Field and it's snowy and it's 15 to 20 degrees out and it's frigid, and you're from Tennessee and you play in Tennessee where it's mild weather, forget it. It's not even a close call. Packers win 40-14. Rodgers 21-25, 231 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Devontae Adams, who's going to be a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year, 11 catches, 142, 3 touchdowns. There's nothing else that needs to be said other than Rodgers. And Rodgers is the favorite right now, according to Las Vegas Superbook, to be the MVP of the NFL of this season, of the regular season here, over Mahomes. I think it was like a minus 310. With that being said, Aaron Rodgers is doing more with less. He doesn't have as many offensive weapons, but because of his ability to throw the football, his accuracy throwing the football, it's a done deal. And last but not least, to talk about Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, too much of these two guys in their blowout victory over the New England Patriots, 38-9. It felt like all the years that they have lost to the New England Patriots over the years was all bottled up and was like a volcanic eruption going off in this game. Stephon Diggs now owns the Buffalo single season record for most receptions in a season and most receiving yards in a season for in a Buffalo Bills uniform. Unfortunately, the Patriots out of the playoff picture. They're done for the year. They got one more game left, but they're really not, all they can do is practically play spoilers. But you know what? They can't play spoilers because they're playing the freaking Jets out of all the teams. So with that being said, let's get into the playoff picture here. Starting off with the AFC, we know the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I said earlier, first round bye. They clinched that first round bye. They're 14-1. Buffalo and Pittsburgh are right behind them at the 2 and the 3 seed, 12-3. They both clinched playoff spots. Now we're going to get into the scenarios here for these teams. Up next in the 4th seed in the division, in the AFC South division, the Tennessee Titans at 10-5. Don't forget the Colts are 10-5. So in order for them to make a playoff spot, they must win. Tennessee has the easiest way of making the playoffs this year. All they have to do, they don't even have to do anything. They could lose their last game and still make the playoffs as long as as long as Baltimore or Miami loses, they make the playoffs. In order for them to win the division, they have to win and hope the Colts lose. Now, they're both not playing good teams this week. Tennessee is playing Houston, the Houston Texans, and the Indianapolis Colts are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, like I said, in order for either of these teams to win the division, one team has to win, the other team has to lose in order for them to win the division. With that being said, like I said, for Tennessee to make the playoffs, either Baltimore or Miami has to lose in order for them to clinch a playoff spot. If both of those teams win, the Titans out of the playoffs. With that being said, Dolphins 10-5 at the 5 seed here. In order for them to make the playoffs, they need to win and either have Baltimore, Cleveland, or Indianapolis lose their ball games in order for them to make the playoffs. Same thing with the Ravens. The Ravens need to win their game, and they need to be and either Cleveland or Indianapolis has to lose their games. And then the Browns, practically the same thing. They need to win their game. They need to win their last game, which is up against Pittsburgh. That'll be an interesting game. Cleveland must win that ball game, and they should win this ball game because there's no Ben Roethlisberger in this ball game, and a couple of other players on Pittsburgh are getting much-needed rest to get ready for the playoffs because they've already clinched the spot. But Cleveland, they must win the ball game, or Indianapolis loses. And for the Colts, the one team on the outside looking in that has a chance of making the playoffs, they must win their ball game, and Baltimore, Cleveland, or Miami must lose. One of those three teams must lose, and they must win their game in order for them to make the playoffs. So, as you can tell, this is a very tightly contested game, a tightly contested playoff picture here in the AFC. One team in the AFC here will not make the playoffs and will be a 10-win team. So that's saying a lot. That's how tightly contested the 4 through 8 seed is right now. Someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. And some of these teams played each other earlier this year. Like, obviously, as you can tell, the AFC South has played teams from the AFC North, aka the Steelers just beat the Colts. That's how you know that the North and AFC North and South divisions played each other this year. So that's where the tiebreakers are all coming from. And who wins, who loses, etc. Moving over to the NFC. I know this video is getting a little long. I'm trying to be quick here. Packers clinch the 1 seed, but let me explain this a little bit better. The Packers, Saints, and Seahawks all have a chance to earn the first round bye. The Seahawks have the worst chance of it out of all three of them. For the Packers, who are 12-3, all three of these teams clinch a playoff spot already. In order for the Packers to make the playoffs, they must win their last game, which is up against the Chicago Bears, and Seattle must lose. Or Seattle loses, I should say. Or Seattle loses here is what it says here. And Seattle plays the San Francisco 49ers, and as you just saw, and as you just heard earlier, San Francisco has already played spoiler against the Arizona Cardinals and beat them 20-13. Saints, in order for the Saints to clinch the number 1 seed and a first round bye, they must win their game, and Green Bay must lose. By the way, New Orleans plays Carolina here in the last game of the regular season, and Seattle must win. So the Saints and Seattle must win their games, and Green Bay must lose their game in order for New Orleans to get the first round bye. Seattle, like I said earlier, has the worst chance of getting it, has the most unlikely chance to get it. They must win, and Green Bay and New Orleans must lose, which is highly, highly, highly doubtful. In all, Packers are going to get the number 1 overall seed. I don't see them losing to Chicago, but then at the same time, though, Chicago Bears have been really good the last 4 or 5 weeks. The play calling's been fantastic. There's movement on the offensive end. It's not a predictable offense against this Packers team who's been rolling all season long. Don't leave the Chicago Bears just yet. With that being said, Washington, who's the 4th seed at 6-9, they must win. That's the only thing they have to do to clinch the NFC East. They must win to win that division and to clinch the 4 seed playoff spot and to clinch themselves a first round home game in the wild card division. Bucks obviously clinch a playoff spot already. They don't have to do anything. They could rest all their starters next week and still make the playoffs because no one else in that division is going to come close. If anything happens, if the Rams win, they could bump, the the Tampa Bay down to the 6th seed. That's really the only thing that can happen here. Rams, who are the 6th seed at 9-6 here, they must win, or Chicago must lose in order for them to make the playoffs. The Chicago Bears at 8-7, they're the last seed in the NFC right now, the number 7 seed at 8-7. They must win, or Arizona must lose in order for them to make the playoffs. Now, with the 3 teams on the bubble, with the Arizona Cardinals, the Cowboys, and the Giants, for Arizona at 8-7 here, they must win. That's all they have to do. They need to win this. They need to win their final game in order for them to make the playoffs. Like I said, the Bears need to win, and Arizona must lose. And by the way, Arizona plays the Los Angeles Rams. That's what they get for Week 17 and a chance to make the playoffs. Cowboys must win. The Cowboys are 6-9, tied for the division lead in the NFC East. They must win that division. They must win their last game, and Washington must lose. That's the only way they're going to win the division and make the playoffs. Same thing with the Giants as well. They must win their game, and Washington must lose. So it's unlikely Washington plays Philadelphia here. I have good assumptions Washington is going to win this ball game. They waived Dwayne Haskins, which was a little bit of a shock, but it wasn't a shock based on the decisions he has made in the last week or so, not wearing a mask, not doing the right thing. So they waived him, and he's been underperforming ever since he got drafted by them. With that being said, this is all I have for you guys. Week 17 is upon us here. The new year is upon us. Hopefully, honestly, I don't care who makes the playoffs here, to be 100% honest. I know I'm sitting here wearing a Patriots jersey. Trust me, I don't care about the Patriots not making the playoffs. Everyone kind of knew this was going to be an off season for them. But thank you guys so much for your time. The majority of you guys who watch my videos, you guys haven't subscribed to the channel. So please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already done that. Because the majority of you haven't. And when I mean majority of you, I mean like 80% of you guys who watch my videos do not hit the like or the subscribe button. So please do that. I appreciate the support. Stay tuned for more videos. Obviously, the NBA season has started up, obviously. And some teams have surprised us already that have started the season undefeated. Orlando's 4-0. There's been some crazy teams here that have already started the season hot, and they look like they're in mid-season form. Stay tuned for that video. Thanks again so much for your time. I will see you guys all in the next one. Deuces.